did the Royal Navy's last mutiny force Britain off the gold standard? It's September 1912. First Lord of the Admiralty and future Prime Minister Winston Churchill is visiting the Cromarty Firth in Scotland and advocating for its use as a naval base. This idea was nothing new. The capabilities of the Firth as a naval base had been spotted by engineer Thomas Telford in 1802, and the Baltic fleet under Admiral Charles Napier stayed in the Firth during the Crimean War. But back in 1912, with Germany becoming a powerful naval rival, work at Invergordon began on a new harbour and naval base. It was used throughout the First World War, including in 1915 when the sinking of the HMS Natal cost 390 lives, but usage really ramped up in the 1930s. But the 30s were a bad time to be in the Navy. The Great Depression had hit, and the government was launching cuts to public spending, including a 10% pay cut for naval personnel. The 12,000 personnel of the Atlantic Fleet didn't find out about the pay cuts until reading about it in the papers in Invergordon, where the cuts were greatly exaggerated. And so, on the morning of Tuesday the 15th of September 1931, at 8 AM, the mutiny began. The HMS Valiant, which you see here, was set to be the first of 5 ships to leave the Firth, but the stokers refused to get her up and running and head out onto the forecastle and cried out to the other ships, who were also not moving. The mutiny was in full swing. While it was called a mutiny, it was more of a peaceful strike, but the perfect storm had come. The 20s and 30s was when fear of communism in Britain became mainstream. Workers striking sounds communist. Time to panic. And there was plenty of panic, with the establishment fearing that communism was allowing Britain's armed forces to fall apart, and the communists fearing they'd miss the strike. British Communist Party members headed down to Plymouth, another key naval base, and attempted to recruit other radical sailors. There were none. In fact, the mutiny itself was nothing to worry about, as seen in this extract from a letter from the 16th of September sent to Clive Wigram, the King's Secretary, by the Naval Secretary Sir George Chetwood. The Chief of Staff emphasises the fact that the attitude of the men to their officers has been, if anything, more respectful than usual, and there's been no interference with essential services such as the running of dynamos, pumping machinery, etc. To end the mutiny, the fleet sailed from Invergordon to the south of England, where the establishment had more control, but this didn't stop the panic, which was now being reflected on the London Stock Exchange. So much confidence was lost in the pound that the government was forced to back off the gold standard, this time permanently. After a while, the panic subsided, but there were consequences for the men involved. 93 of the main perpetrators of the strike were kicked out of the Navy. One, Len Wincott, who you see here, defected to the Soviet Union, though he previously had no intention of doing so. He even survived the siege of Leningrad in World War II before being sent to the Gulag in the late 1940s after being accused of being a British spy. As for the pay cut, well, it wasn't as severe as originally intended in order to keep the soldiers at bay. So in the end, the mutiny was respectful and didn't last very long, but it will be remembered as the last major mutiny in the Royal Navy and the thing that forced Britain off the gold standard for good. Goodbye.